This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. Thanks also to our friends at Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship. Gulfstream Park champions start here, and this is one of those days where that is going to play out. The Holy Bull tops the card of some great stakes action down at Gulfstream on this Saturday afternoon. Before I get into that, let me just hit you with a couple promotions coming up tomorrow. The big game, obviously, tomorrow on Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. Double promotions here at the Clubhouse Racebook. $100 Knockout Challenge and a match bet promotion. That all happens here tomorrow. Kick off your Super Bowl Sunday with us here at the Clubhouse Racebook. See if you can put a little dough in your pockets and a smile on your face before you sit down to watch the game tomorrow evening. Come on down to the Clubhouse Racebook tomorrow, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Also, don't forget tomorrow there's a 1% bonus on your AQUEDUCT wagers. There are some rules and restrictions to that, so check out the website for more information. Also, Wednesdays and Thursdays coming up in February, 2% bonus on your Gulfstream wagers. Again, more information on that at the website as well, capitalotb.com. Programming reminder, I've been mentioning it the past couple of days, but for folks who maybe just are tuned in for the weekend editions, coming up next Friday, Saturday, Sunday, February 7th through the 9th, we will return to Las Vegas for the National Handicapping Championship. Had a lot of fun last year when we were out there. Some of the biggest and best players in the world obviously make the cut and go out and challenge for big money at the end. We will be there from the start on Friday to the final table on Sunday afternoon/evening, and we'll have some live cut-ins and interviews. There's always some locals out there. Matt Vajvolji was a local contender for the big prize as part of the final table last year, and it was kind of fun to be able to follow a local through to the end. As he got to the final table sitting in ninth, and so over the course of the last few races, we watched him climb up to that nice finishing position, a nice prize at the end. As I say, it was fun to have a local to follow through, but we will be checking in with all the locals throughout the weekend and keeping you up to date where they are, but also talking to some of the bigger players in the, as I say, in the country and picking their brain as well over the weekend. Should be a lot of fun. From Bally's this year out in Vegas next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, right here on Capital OTB TV. All right, again, big day at Gulfstream. And a big day at 3-year-olds. We talked a little bit about it earlier with Brian Nadeau on the Handicappers Report. A notable step on the Derby Trail across the country. In New York, the Withers. At Gulfstream, the Holy Bull. And out in Southern California, the Bob Lewis. And we'll touch on all of those races this morning. A little bit later on, we will be joined live by ELLIS STARR, national racing analyst for EQUIBASE, and we'll hit on those 3-year-old stakes, a couple other stakes as well on the cards today at the various venues. We're going to kick things off, however. We taped this interview yesterday. Lucky enough to get a few minutes with Jack Knowlton, the managing partner for Sackatoga Stable. TIZTHELAW had that spectacular debut effort up at Saratoga, really one of the better performances by a 2-year-old up at Saratoga last year. Followed that up with a win in the Champaign, then the third in the Kentucky Jockey Club. So TIZTHELAW, really one of the top 2-year-olds last year, and will make his 3-year-old debut this afternoon in the Holy Bull. So we got some thoughts on TIZTHELAW and his 3-year-old season kicking off this afternoon at Gulfstream in the Holy Bull. Jack Knowlton up next. Jack, good morning.
Good morning.
Happy to be talking to you and catching up. And before we get to some specifics, just give me kind of an overview. What's the excitement level to get TIZTHELAW off to his 3-year-old debut?
Well, there's a lot of excitement, after his winning debut at Saratoga and the way he won the Champaign at Belmont. The hype was tremendous. Then we, hit a little bump in the road when he got a pretty tough trip in the Kentucky Jockey Club down in Churchill. But came out of that race great. We just backed off him a little bit for a couple of weeks, and then he went back into serious training at Palm Meadows right after Christmas, and had a bull at work last Sunday, and is ready to roll, I think.
Let's talk a little bit about that Kentucky Jockey Club, because I've talked about it for a couple of months now to guests here on the show to get opinions, and I'll get your opinion. What did you and Barclay have to say after the race? Manny Franco, his opinions. We're going to watch the stretch run here. Kentucky Jockey Club. TIZTHELAW will be the number 3 horse, running third. The winner, Silver Prospector. Number 6, Finnick the Fierce, runs second. I should mention number 1, Enforceable, runs fourth in here and subsequently won the Lecomte down at the fairgrounds, so that had to make you feel good. But again, a third place finish from TIZTHELAW, and we can see kind of gets the opening here and just doesn't really get the acceleration needed to get up there. But I said after the race, if you're on the bandwagon, stay on the bandwagon, because I thought it was a good education. First time around 2 turns, it was an off track. He had some traffic trouble. I thought he came away with what is a good education to build on. But again, what were the thoughts of the team after the race?
Well, I think that's very consistent with what we felt. Obviously we were disappointed. He was a big favorite in the race, and we were hopeful that he'd win that race, because I think he would have had a legitimate shot at the Eclipse if he had. But unfortunately, as he's been prone to do, he broke just a step slow, and unfortunately that put Manny in a tough spot. And the other jockeys, I think, they were not looking forward to him coming into Churchill and winning that race. So he got pretty much boxed, and it was a slow pace, and you could see that he was just anxious to go on the backside. I mean, he used to going in 46, and they went in 50, and I had, a couple of people that I value their opinions very highly, Hall of Fame jockey being one of them, that said, that'll take a lot out of the horse. And, the inside, arguably the worst part of the racetrack. And, I think when it came time to have the punch that we've seen, in his first 2 races, he just didn't have it that day on that track.
Yeah, as I say, to me it was a good education. I'm looking forward to the 3-year-old debut. You mentioned it, alluded to some gait problems, and from what I've read, you guys have been working on that. What has been the game plan to get him a little more comfortable in the gait?
Well, he, seems to be maturing. You look at, some of his races and some of his works, he cocks his head sideways. He hadn't been doing that at all at Palm Meadows the last, 2 or 3 works. I mean, Johnny Velasquez worked him 3 works ago. Manny's flown down for the last 2 works. And if you look at the work that he had at Palm Meadows on Sunday, it couldn't have been better. The gallop out was strong at, both 5 and 6 and 7 furlongs. So, I think, he's primed. Unfortunately, the weather is a little shaky. There's, pretty good chance of a thunderstorm down here. But Manny said, that it wasn't a track that, was a problem for him. It was a trip in Kentucky.
Yeah, that has to give you a little confidence, because I did see the weather stands a chance of being a little bit dicey. But to have some experience over and off track already, and again, you're playing outdoors, you don't know. And so to get that kind of a race that you got in Kentucky on and off track, I think has to give you confidence going forward that he can perform.
Absolutely. No, I'm glad we got that past us, and also very happy to hear that what Manny said, that he didn't feel that the track was a factor that day for him.
And, you mentioned the work. We pulled up a little video. I think this is on the far turn down at Palmettos the other day. TIZTHELAW is going to be on the outside here with a workmate. Looked pretty good in this video. As I say, we're just picking up on the far turn. Were you up at Palmettos for the day? And just, you've already said a good work. What was it like visually?
I was up there in the morning. Barkley has him out there at 7:30, and he just was strong. I mean, as he was. I mean, when I first saw him at Saratoga, I'd go over at 6 o'clock in the morning, and Barkley would work him that early. And, he had some fast works, but it really wasn't just the work that were impressive. It was the way he galloped out. I mean, he didn't want to stop running. He'd be still running as fast going around the second turn at Saratoga, it seemed, as he was coming down the stretch. So that, gave us a lot of confidence that we had a horse that, had a lot of potential, and obviously he showed that.
How's he like Palmettos? Personally, I love Palmettos. Whenever we go out for the Florida Derby, we always spend a morning up there and try to get some interviews. It's just a nice facility for people and the horses. It's
absolutely spectacular. It's worth every dollar that you paid to have your horses there for 3 or 4 months. Frank Stronach, did some good things, and I would say Palmettos probably is right at the top of the list.
Yeah, it is really a great facility, and it's just kind of relaxing to be out there in the mornings watching them work, and I'm sure that translates to the horses as well. Jack, let's go back and take a look at the Champagne. We've already talked about that just briefly a little bit. We're going to look at the stretch run here, and you may get a little barometer on TIZTHELAW earlier on Saturday with Green Light Go, because Green Light Go, the number 3 horse, finishes second here to number 7 TIZTHELAW in the Champagne. This was a huge performance in only the second career start. And what I want you to talk about a little bit, after the really impressive debut went up at Saratoga, we had you on the backstretch with us in the morning to talk a little bit about that. And at that point, you were thinking of maybe the funny side path with the Bonguard and the Sleepy Hollow New York bred stakes, and then move into Open Company as a 3-year-old. But you kind of went to plan B and went into Open Company in the Champagne. What was the thought process that changed you up and got you the Grade 1 win?
Well, Barkley and I pontificated about what to do for a couple of weeks. It's a big move to go from a New York bred maiden race up to the Champagne, obviously. But when we looked at the Beyer speed figure that he ran, I mean, it was a 90 the first time out at Saratoga, and that was the fastest Beyer speed figure of any 2-year-old at Saratoga. And we said, he's doing great, he's training great, the timing is right, let's take a shot. And we did, and we thought that he belonged there, obviously, or he wouldn't have gone. But the way he won that race, and the race at Saratoga, I mean, in either of those races, the jockey never asked him for anything. It was all done on his own. He just, kind of exploded past horses when he got in the stretch.
And again, we watched the stretch run there. He looked great following up what was that impressive debut, maybe one of the most impressive 2-year-old races of the Saratoga meet. Let's go back. I pulled up the page from his sale going back to 2018 up in Saratoga. New York bred portion of the Fasig-Tipton sale. He was hip number 311 by Constitution out of the dam Tiz Fizz. Talk a little bit about how you selected the horse, what attracted you to him. Constitution, brand new on the scene, so you were kind of ahead of the curve there because he has turned out to be a very good sire. But what attracted you to TIZTHELAW as a yearling up in Saratoga?
Well, basically, Barkley and Robin are SACKATOGA'S bloodstock advisors. And, we go through the catalog, and we definitely want dams that have thrown stakes winners or were stakes winners. We need to see that, or we just kind of pass. So that's the first cut. And, then Constitution, being a son of Tappet, certainly the bloodlines were there. Constitution had a short career, but a very successful career. And, then physically, both Barkley and Robin really liked him. He vetted out great, and we were fortunate enough. You can see from the sales results, we paid $110,000 for him, and that was probably about the last bid that we were going to make. So thank goodness we kind of had $100,000, and we went that next bid, and nobody came back. So we got him, and he went to Ocala with Tony Everard at New Episode Training Center, as all our horses do, and just continued to develop, and we got all kinds of good reports from Tony that he really liked what he saw, and he trained real well. He had a good head, and then we got him to Belmont. Barkley got him starting working there, and then Saratoga, and finally got him to the races.
Talk a little bit about that, because obviously we talked to a lot of owners during the year, and you can see it when we watch races, owners and the level of excitement when your horse comes down the stretch and winds up in front, and then in the winner's circle you see the big smiles. But talk about winning on the auction side of the game, when you're in there and you have a horse picked out and you've gotten pretty much to your limit, and they're up there with the gavel kind of like, okay, and they're reading the catalog one more time, and you're kind of fingers crossed nobody jumps in. What's it like to get a win at the auction house?
Well, that's huge. I mean, and we usually have a dozen, 15, 20 people from Sackatoga that come to the sale, so everybody's there. There's anticipation. We typically at that sale we'll end up with 3 or 4 horses that we're interested in, and you just have to get lucky and get them. I mean, I think the most expensive horse we've ever paid is $180,000, and that horse he did break his maiden convincingly. It's at AQUEDUCT in his 3-year-old year, and then we gave him some time, and he came back and decided he didn't want to be a racehorse. So, I mean, you just don't know. And you look at the money that gets spent, and there's so many horses that cost a lot of money and don't turn out to be good racehorses. And we've been very fortunate. We don't spend a lot, and to get a second horse like in any way that you can compare to the funny side, never in the world could I believe that something like that might happen. And
talk a little bit about you guys are focused on New York breds, right? You're a big believer in the New York bred program.
We only buy New York breds. When Jose got off funny side when he won the Derby, his first words were, get with the program, New York breds. And we're there, and we support the program. We really believe that it's a tremendous program, and that's what we buy. We had a filly last year that was eligible for the Stallion Stakes. She's by Central Banker, and she ran second in a couple of those stakes. She broke a maiden. She won her first level allowance at Saratoga, and she made $150,000 or so. So there's great value in those kinds of horses. We liked her so much we went out and bought her full sister. And Central Banker, is one of the top New York sires, and when you look at some of the statistics nationally, he, is very good in that regard also.
And from what I've read, I mean, we remember the old Funny Side days with the original Sackatoga partners. We were all familiar with them through the Triple Crown and the school bus and whatnot. But from what I've read, you have quite a crew involved in this. A big gang going to head to Gulfstream Saturday afternoon?
We've got 60-plus folks that are going to be there, and we have there are 32 people that have some interest in this horse, which is really great. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of a nightmare logistically, and it'll get worse as we go forward if we do. But the enthusiasm and the excitement, we have 53 people down in Kentucky, and we just had a tremendous time, and we're looking forward to it tomorrow. Lou Titterton, who has a summer home in Saratoga, and we're the only ones left from the original Sunnyside gang.
That's great. The more the merrier, and certainly up at Saratoga, we watch when partnerships go into the winner's circle and smiles on their faces, and that's what makes the game a lot of fun, and pulling in these people now who otherwise wouldn't have been able to afford it with the partnership side, and Sackatoga's done a great job. Jack, I've also read game plan is, depending obviously on circumstances or whatnot, but you're going to look maybe to continue the funny side path now and head over to Fairgrounds if things all go well on Saturday.
That is our plan. We like the spacing, and that's March 21st. Interestingly, this year they've extended the distance of their prep races at Fairgrounds. So the Louisiana Derby is going to be a mile and 3/16 this year. We think that our horse is a horse that can get the distance. We like the fact that he broke his maiden in Saratoga in August, and so he's kind of a veteran, if you will, compared to a lot of the 3-year-olds. We think that he'll be ready to take that extra step, and as Barkley says, they got to be able to run a mile and 3/16. They're going to run a mile and a quarter in the Derby. So this will give us a good read. And I personally like the idea of having, the longest stretch in America, to have a horse have a good chance to get a clean run and come down that stretch. And if he, was able to do what he did in his first 2 races, I think that'll be a real good track for him.
Yeah, the mile and 3/16 I think makes it very interesting. Going to be intriguing to see how the Louisiana Derby runners perform this year in the Kentucky Derby. Jack, appreciate the time this morning to talk a little bit about Saturday afternoon's Holy Bull and the return of TIZTHELAW for his 3-year-old debut. We wish you a lot of luck on Saturday, a lot of luck going forward. It's always fun to root for horses that have local connections. So, again, have a great day on Saturday, and we will talk again.
Great. Thanks so much. We look forward to it.
Jack Knowlton, again, TIZTHELAW, 3-year-old debut Saturday afternoon in the Holy Bull.
Welcome to Albany County, an incredible destination to live, work, and play, with easy connections to more than a dozen cities from our vibrant modern airport. It's a short trip downtown to a hive of culture and amusement, from world-class shows at the newly renovated Times Union Center to reliving the past at the New York State Museum. From outdoor recreation to shopping to nightlife, Albany County has something for everyone. We'll see you soon.
Where's the best place to find your favorite teams, your favorite food, daily drink specials, and wagering on live horse racing? Legends Field Sports Bar, 711 Central Avenue, Albany. Get your game on day or night with 75 flat-screen TVs, tournament-style pool tables, a private banquet room, and live horse racing. So if someone asks you, where's the best sports bar in the Capital Region? Tell them Legends Field Sports Bar, inside the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
Wagering on horse racing just got a lot easier at Capital OTB with our newly designed state-of-the-art mobile wagering site. Everything you need is right here on one easy-to-navigate mobile platform. Set your favorite tracks, pick your horses, place your bets, all with a simple tap of the screen. Plus, you'll have access to Capital OTB TV for all our network programming. So log on to CapitalOTBBet.com and see just how easy wagering on horse racing can be.
Visit Rivers Casino and Resort, the Capital Region's only destination for live table game action and the hottest new slots paying out millions. And they're off. Horse betting is now at Rivers Casino and Resort with Capital off-track betting terminals and live tellers located just off the gaming floor at Van Slyck's. Get in on all the action at Rivers Casino and Resort.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. As promised earlier, joined now by our friend ELLIS STARR, national racing analyst from EQUIBASE. We'll talk some of the 3-year-old stakes and more. ELLIS, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. Good morning, racing fans. Thanks for having me on, Seth.
And I didn't mention at the top of the show, but you and I were talking during the break. I had pulled up the Jason Blewett Twitter feed. Also, Mark Hennig on Twitter said it. With weather at Gulfstream, it was a little bit iffy how things would shake out. As of right now, Races 8 and 10 are still on the turf. The other turf races are off, but at this point, 8 and 10 are still on down at Gulfstream. Ellis, before we get to some of the handicapping, you and I were going back and forth yesterday as far as scheduling for today, and yes, if I would be out in Las Vegas, and I said yes, I would, because we're doing the National Handicapping Championship next weekend, and last year when we were out there, we had you on with us a couple of times during the weekend, because you were out there with EQUIBASE and talking a little bit about Stats Race Lens to some of the biggest handicappers in the country, and maybe more importantly, when the contest ended, the winner, Scott Coles, he was a user of Stats Race Lens.
And the third place finisher, Matt Volgi, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So we're very pleased. Yeah, Scott's been a great ambassador. They just did a podcast with some, Peter Fornatale and some guys. They just did a podcast about prepping, and we've been talking about angles a little bit, and it's exciting. Yeah, I'm actually, believe it or not, I'll still be able to do whatever you want, but I'm eligible because our status changed a little bit. So right now I'm playing in I haven't qualified for NHC, but I'm playing in the last chance contest on Thursday, and we'll see if I can turn that into at least a chip in a chair.
Oh, nice. Very good. I keep saying I'd love to. I just don't have enough time to play in the contest. And the ones I have played in, I've done well enough. I think I would have a shot at getting out there. I mean, the Saratoga contest a few years ago, I sat in 8th place most of the afternoon, and then at the last couple of races of the day, people were taking swings, and I got knocked down to about 14th. But I just don't have enough time to play in as many as I would like. But I keep telling people, if you do have the time, jump in, because not only perhaps you get sent out to Vegas and a shot at some big money, but I think the contests are fun because you have to think a little bit differently and shop for some value, and I think it helps you hone your handicapping skills.
There's no doubt about it. I play one almost every Friday night in the winter. The Keeneland sponsors out here, and those are some of the lesser tracks, Penn and Turfway and Delta, and they do, because you have to play some of those in the optionals. Not necessarily minor tracks, but minor races, not winners at 2 and things like that. And it's a lot of fun. I'd just say the basic advice I'd give you and anybody, and I probably play 100 a year, is you just keep trying, because it's a matter of getting lucky on a particular day. You could have a great day and, like you say, get run down late. You could have a great day and do that. I finished 4th. I think about 100 people in a big contest. It was just a money contest on Breeders' Cup Saturday, and I just had a couple good horses that got lucky and people didn't have them, and I was in position, moved up a little bit, and this is the kind of thing where you have to do in these contests. But lots of times you're just going to get offered, or you're going to miss the one big horse in a contest.
Well, that's another thing I say. Don't get discouraged because even the biggest guys, the guys who wind up at the final table in Vegas, the next year they're nowhere to be seen. It's a little bit different. It does have to be your day. It's not like golf or tennis where if you're a top 10 player, it would be unusual for you to be in the back of the pack any given week. There is some skill and there's some luck involved, and so you can whiff one week and then the next week it's your day and you wind up at the top of the pack.
Well, it's not just your skill level. That's the point. You're still betting horses, even though it's mythical money, and some are live, of course. It's not just your skill level, because you could do great handicapping and a horse gets in a trap or something happens, and that's just you lose a photo. You get taken down, things like that, and that's the difference between winning and losing a lot of these contests.
All right, Ellis, let's jump in and take a look, because I said at the top of the show, a big 3-year-old day, early steps on the Derby Trail, and we have some 3-year-old races to take a look at. Your EQUIBASE play of the week is the Holy Bull. Let's start out with that. We just finished up an interview with Jack Knowlton, talking a little bit about TIZTHELAW. So we saw the replays from the Champaign and the Kentucky Jockey Club. So to pull up a little something different here, and I think this is going to be pertinent to your thoughts going in. I had looked at your write-up on EQUIBASE, and people can check that out every week, your feature race of the week. You have a nice write-up every week on that, every Saturday. But I pulled up the maiden special weight maiden breaker, December 28th, from Barney Fife, a.k.a. Mayberry Deputy, pretty good-looking maiden breaker in the third career start off a nice set of improving numbers over the first 3 starts. He's intriguing. TIZTHELAW, obviously, in the 3-year-old debut. 8 Indienne, if I'm pronouncing that anywhere near correctly, the Patrick Biancone horse coming off the win last time down at Gulfstream. Chad Brown has Toledo. It's a field of 7, but I think you could make arguments and have a pretty similar level of confidence for maybe 5 or 6 in here. Talk a little bit about your thoughts in the Holy Bull.
Well, I hadn't looked at the morning line, and I try not to because it definitely sometimes tweaks me the wrong way. I liked Mayberry Deputy, and they made him 15-1, coming off a maiden win. But this is the time of year where this happens. So obviously, people remember, and I did check this using Stats Racelens after I kind of looked at the horse. Ken McPeak saddled last year's winner Harvey Wallbanker at 29-1 off a maiden win. It's a pattern, but the horses come off maiden wins to win these early races, just like 2-year-olds do. But I like the pattern. He went from a really kind of a poor debut to a decent running second to Goldstream, who since came back to win the Smarty Jones. That was last November, with an 86 EQUIBASE figure, then up to a 102 at Gulfstream when he broke his maiden at a mile. And if you compare that, you look at Etienne, who you mentioned, who's 6-1 versus 15. He got a 1-1 figure winning a 1-turn mile at Gulfstream. That was an allowance versus the maiden, but that's not much difference. TIZTHELAW, look, he's a good horse, but 95, 93, 91. He'll probably improve. He's probably more physically mature than he was in the fall. Ain't no real standout. Relentless Dancer also improving. One thing I pointed out in my analysis was that the Louisiana Legacy Stakes at Delta 7 furlongs is a 2-turn race. So believe it or not, the only horse with a 2-turn win on dirt in the race is Relentless Dancer. But back to Mayberry Deputy, Majestic Perfection hasn't had a lot of horses, even though he stands for 100,000 in stakes races. But he did produce the 2015, I believe, Kentucky Oaks winner, Lovely Maria, who got 9 furlongs, who was the runner-up in the Black Eyed Susan. And so I have no concern about that. I just think this horse is live for Kenny, and I think he's completely ignored here at 15 morning line. So I'm going to use Mayberry Deputy as my win bet, and I'm going to make a smaller win bet on Relentless Dancer in this race because I think TIZTHELAW is okay, but not great. I'll use TIZTHELAW and those two in pick 3s and pick 4s, and that's as deep as I'm going in this race. But I can't see Mayberry Deputy second. He's the second longest priced on morning line, Seth, and I don't get it. He does not deserve to be.
I'm actually curious as to how that's going to shake out once the betting is completed, because I think that will come down a little bit. I'm kind of with you. These may be better than the morning line indicates. All right, let's move on to New York and the Withers this afternoon. Another nice 3-year-old race, $250,000 up for grabs in the Grade 3 event. We are going to take a look at Portos. Maiden breaker on December 31st. Portos is going to be the number 6 horse, winning up here under Jose Lezcano at Aqueduct, again on New Year's Eve. It's Todd Pletcher. Pletcher just does so well on these Derby Trail races. You automatically have to look at his horses with some extra verve, as it were. Shotsky, though, coming off the win in the Remsen, will attract some attention. I think Monday Morning Quarterback. That heft down at Laurel always intrigues me. Going back, 2 or 3 years when Diamond King won, I kind of followed that horse, and he was became an interesting 3-year-old the following year after winning the heft. So that race is always interesting to me, and Monday Morning Quarterback won it. Prince of Pharaoh's a little bit intriguing as well, from Linda Rice off the second last time to Independence Hall in the Jerome. What are your thoughts, however, in the Withers?
Well, as I said yesterday when we talked about it, I hadn't looked at it yet, and I looked at it, and I'm a little more excited about it than I was before. Certainly the horses with 9 furlong experience, Portos and Shotsky, are legitimate. But I like the horses stretching out from 7 to 9 a lot better here. And what's really intriguing, not only did Monday Morning Quarterback win, he was on the wrong lead in the stretch, he's projected to go forward. He's on a double top right now, like EQUIBASE. You talk about double being the same figure, 102, 102. He's either going to go down or go up, but Bob Reed's a good veteran trainer. But what's interesting here, and Morning Quarterback's going to be my top pick, but the horse that ran second in the race, New Commission, should not be 15-1. If you make Morning Quarterback 4-1 and New Commission 3/4 behind, he should be 6 or 8, in my opinion. And I think that's where the real value is in the gimmicks and the exotics and exactas and trifectas. Because this horse, I'm going to be betting that he's going to be coming second and third. I'm going to take certainly money quarterback as a win bet, but I'm going to play the 3 main contenders you mentioned, Shonsky, Portos, money quarterback with new commission and second and third with everybody. And because this is another one like Mayberry Deputy that just shouldn't be 15-1. He broke his maiden by 12 at Park, 7 furlongs. He's a Georgia bred. Okay, fine. You can make fun of it. I went and looked up some things very interesting. The only other foal of the dam ran okay in routes, but field commission, I didn't remember the horse. Chaz Race Lens is so great at this. I can go and look at the horse's entire history himself. He won $1 million, all sprints. He was a multiple graded stakes winner. But he's at a horse called Service Stripe, who I don't remember. All I know is this horse was class. The dam has produced, I didn't mention this, a 9 winners from 27 foals. Or field commission, 9 winners from 27 horses. So 1/3 of his races, the horses have produced winners, and probably not bred to him a lot because he is, again, a Georgia horse. Probably stands there. But anyway, my point on this was he's got bigger shot than 15-1. I like money quarterback to win the race, and certainly I wouldn't be surprised if Portos or Shotsky won, but there's no value in either of them.
As I say, I like that heft, so you having the 1-2 finishers coming out of that, I like that angle. All right, let's go out to the West Coast. Their 3-year-old race this Saturday afternoon is the Bob Lewis. Field of 6 entered in here. Going to pull up and take a look at the Los Al Futurity. A field of only 4, but 1,000 words for Bob Baffert, the number 3 horse. Going to take a lot of action this afternoon off of that victory, which was win number 2 in start number 2. And with Bob Baffert attached, again, it's going to attract a lot of attention. Baffert also has high velocity. Tis a Magician for Richard Mandela. Took a while, but it seemed like maybe the light bulb turned on last time as he broke the maiden nicely in career start number 6. Encoder for John Sadler is interesting, but on the surface, which you don't quite know where to go with Encoder. What are your thoughts on the Bob Lewis?
It was a yawner for me. I mean, I not that it's just 6 horses and you can immediately toss out Royal Act and Simple Warrior, at least from win contenders. 1,000 words, lone front runner, back for 36% back-to-back. I think he's just about as high in every level, like maiden to stakes to stakes, route to sprint, doesn't matter. This is his A horse here. I think he wins. I can't make a case for Encoder on the move from turf to dirt. I think they're just trying to see if he likes the dirt. English Channel's dirt, route, stakes stats for his progeny are pretty bad. 4 for 36 in the last 5 years. I like the dirt work. I like Smith, but and the speed figure is actually better. The 106 versus 1,000 words 101 Equibase scale, but I think 1,000 words takes this, and I have very little interest in the race.
Yeah, it's 6-horse field and 1,000 words does look to have this one over a barrel, perhaps. All right, let's get a couple other stakes, and let's first stick out at Santa Anita. San Pasqual comes up a little bit later on the card on Saturday. A field of 10 entered in the San Pasqual Grade 2 event for the older horses, going 1 mile and 1/8. Roadster in here for Bob Baffert. Restrained Vengeance looks a little bit interesting, coming out of the stakes win at Zia Park, but had run well at Santa Anita previously, although some of those races were on the turf. Going to take a look at the San Antonio. Gift Box is going to be the winner. Gift Box is the number 2, but right behind number 3, King Abner, and number 6, Midcourt. They both come back on Saturday in the San Pasqual and are interesting. Instagram is in here. 235 maybe stands an interesting shot. Combatant is a horse I have been on board all throughout the career and just hasn't gotten it done for me. But interesting, Combatant now moves away from Steve Asmussen and into the John Sadler barn and looks to be based out in Southern California now. So Combatant to me is interesting in here. But what are your thoughts on the San Pasqual?
Stealing my thunder, Seth. You're stealing my thunder. I did a TVG clip. I do Thursday, 2 segments on Thursday now with Stats Racelands, and this is what I use. I wasn't looking for it, but I went down the list and said, I see he's trained by Asmussen last out. Let's look. And he was owned by Winchell, so you know it's a private purchase. So you've got a 6-year-old, 5-year-old who's earned $450,000, he's a ridgeling, so I'm not sure they're going to breed him. He had to have paid $250,000 to $500,000 for this horse. In his recent races were grass, except the race he run before the layoff at Churchill was a mile on the dirt, which is scheduled for the grass. I go back and I can get lifetime PP, so it's great. I go, wait a second, I remember this horse. Second in the Springboard Mile, second in the Smarty Jones, second in the Southwest, third in the Rebel, fourth in the Arkansas Derby, fourth in the Oklahoma Derby with trouble before he went to a lot of these grass races. It's also grade 2 placed, Mathis Brothers Mile on grass. Restrained Vengeance, by the way, is grade 2 placed in City of Hope Mile, so the class is there. But you think about Sadler and you think about why he does this. He like Gift Box, he gets the Accelerate. He gets these horses sometimes privately. And I went and looked, and this is an incredible pattern. It doesn't mean the horse is going to win, but Sadler's had 5 horses in the last couple of years on a trainer change in graded stakes. 3 of them are Stellar Wind, Hard Aces, and Gladding. I can't add it up, but there's about $4 million between them. 2 of them won right off of the change. The other one, I think Hard Aces took a couple races to win when he won that Gold Cup at San Anita last year. So Sadler's looking for these kinds of horses. The drills are just solid, 113, 114 in the last 2. He's been training for a while. He gets Van Dyke, which is fine. Van Dyke, believe it or not, is winning 31% of his dirt routes in the last year. I mean, just consistent as heck, about a 240 ROI for $2. Sadler, by the way, is winning 33% of his dirt routes, 9 for 29 in dirt route stakes as well. So 10 to 1, again, may not hold up. You know, people call me crazy for these kinds of stands. Just to mention, not only if you saw last week, I like Zulu Alpha and Silver Guard. They ran 1-3 at 11 to 1, 10 to 1. Spooky Channel, I said you had to make a bet on the horse, even though it was my third pick. Paid $74 because that Turf Paradise race, mile and 7/8. But in any event, I like Combatant. I like Restrained Vengeance. I'll use Roadster reluctantly in Exactas and Trifectas and pick 3s. But back to your point about not only Roadster, but also the San Antonio with Midcourt King Abner. I don't like horses that run even in the stretch. Midcourt ran 5.33. King Abner ran 2.22. Yes, Gift Box was running off on them, but these aren't horses that really have some really killer instinct in the last eighth of a mile. Roadster's got the talent. He's still a 4-year-old, so he's got improving to do.
All right, let's go back to Gulfstream and take a look at one more race on their nice stakes card. The Dania Beach, and again, this one's scheduled for the grass, so we'll have to keep our eyes on the sky, as it were. But as I noted, at this time, Jason Blewett tweeted out, Mark Hennig tweeted out that the Dania Beach is still on the grass. It's race number 10 this afternoon. In the subdivision, I like quite a bit, year in and year out. 3-year-olds on the turf. This is an early step along that stakes trail where it just seems like there are so many nice stakes for the 3-year-olds on the turf all across the country, and it's a fun division, and I think this stacks up in that area with a really nice field in here. Going to take a look at Homeland in the Central Park up at Aqueduct back on December 6th. The winner is going to be number 10, Pixelate, but number 3, Homeland, a close-up second. And only the second career start for Bill Mott. So Homeland, to me, is interesting. I had South Bend in my mix, Famished for John Kimmel off the Pilgrim try, which was the lone turf start of the career, and maybe his best race, arguably his best race. Maya Manoi, if I'm anywhere close to pronouncing that right, the Danny Gargan horse, interesting as well. Your thoughts on the Dania Beach?
Well, if it stays on the grass, it's a great betting race. I think the favorite's going to be 3-1 or higher. The Homeland 3-1. I'm only going to talk about one horse here, and that's South Bend. Never run on the grass. Okay, that's fine. Won his first 3 races, 6 furlongs, 7 furlongs. He won the Street Cents. 3 Cents turned out to be key because the third-place finisher, Silver Prospector, came back to beat him on a sloppy track in the Jockey Club. Even though he was up close, he faded. And then the Mucho Macho Man, he didn't. I think it's a great move to put this horse on the grass. Stan Huff, has been rock solid as I'm basically the private trainer for Sagamore. Leperoux's staying with him. What's great about this is the dam side breedings. The dam Sandra Roses by Old Trieste, who some folks may remember, I'm dating myself probably, was a great turf horse. But the dam has had 2 turf route winners from 6 foals. So I think there's a lot of breeding. They've been training the horse for the grass. Les, who works her on the turf, You know, he was 7-5 when he won the Street Sense, still 5-2 in the Jockey Club, still 4-1 in the Mucho Macho Man. Because of those last two form lines, he doesn't look as good. 6-1, I loved him. I'm going to key him back and forth with some of the horses you mentioned, but South Bend's my horse. I'm really looking forward if the race stays on the grass.
Nice. So, again, number 2, South Bend in the Danube Beach. Let's go back to last Saturday. You mentioned it, and I just like some thoughts there. You mentioned Zulu Alpha, who I had in my mix. I thought that horse was playable, and I had a nice little exacta there with Magic Wand underneath. Spooky Channel, I did not pull a trigger on. I didn't like that horse, didn't use that horse. But when we did the handicapping show last Saturday morning, my colleague on the show, Brian Nadeau, had Spooky Channel right underneath. So those were a couple of horses that arguments could have been made for. And given that, I was shocked when we got to the last race of the day, the Pegasus last Saturday, the day before a mandatory payout. When we got to the last race last Saturday, 5 of the 10 horses were singles and would have paid the entire pool in the rainbow.
Well, you know, it was a weird sequence. I remember on one of my blogs, I had Pink Sand. I had everything that, and mistakenly, I didn't play the pick 3. I only played the pick 4, pick 3 ending in the race before, and the pick 4. And Mucho Gusto, you know, was just a horse I didn't know would move forward more mature as a 3-year-old, as a 3 to 4-year-old, and he certainly did. I was live to 3 horses from 9 to 32,000. On a pick 4, I think it was this Diamond Oops, War Story, and Tack. And, you know, Mucho Gusto surprised me, but to your point, I think the reason that it was is because a lot of people were taking 1 or 2 horses in that race, because there were so many holes in form in those races. They were all, again, the other ones you say were all findable. And the only reason I liked the channel, he was, again, listed I think it's my 3rd or 4th contender, but I knew the odds would be huge, so I said I'd be kicking myself not betting him. Because he won a mile and 7/8, and he was a Kentucky bred. He just was underbet because he's racing at Turf Paradise. Yeah. And rightfully, that's correct. You know, class-wise, if you think a horse coming out of Turf Paradise. But Lynch already gave him a race. If I remember correctly, Leperoux rode him, so it seemed like it might have been a prep. And that was the reason why, you know, I mean, I thought he should have been paid 15-1. But it was odd. It was odd specifically. It still paid, I think, $12,000.
Yeah.
The pick 4 paid $12,000. The pick 6, of course, paid, you know, nice.
Yeah, it was just a funny situation the day before the mandatory. Everybody breathed a sigh of relief. I'm sure in the executive suites at Gulfstream, especially when it wasn't a single. But when I did the math, I think there was only a couple of tickets. But by the way, the Rainbow paid last Saturday. But as I say, I'm sure everybody breathed a little bit of a sigh of relief. Ellis, we'll let you go, but again, look forward to seeing you next weekend out in Vegas. Talk to you. Maybe we'll be talking to you as a player. I certainly wish you a lot of luck on the Last Chance contest on Thursday.
Thank you very much.
And when's the studying start?
It starts Monday night.
Very good. Ellis, appreciate the visit. We'll see you next week.
All right, bye-bye.
Ellis Starr, national racing analyst from EQUIBASE. Again, 3-year-old races stepping along, serious steps along the early portion of the Derby Trail today. The Withers, the Holy Bull, the Bob Lewis. We also had a couple other races as well because it is a nice stakes day across the country. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll just hit on some news and notes and wrap it up for Saturday morning. Stay tuned.
Where's the best place to find your favorite teams, your favorite food, daily drink specials, and wagering on live horse racing? Legends Field Sports Bar, 711 Central Avenue, Albany. Get your game on day or night with 75 flat-screen TVs, tournament-style pool tables, a private banquet room, and live horse racing. So if someone asks you, where's the best sports bar in the capital region? Tell them Legends Field Sports Bar, inside the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit RTN.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB.
Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at capitalotb.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. An interesting Saturday afternoon ahead. Obviously, we talked about the 3-year-old boys. Do want to alert you as well that the 6th race at Oaklawn today, one of the 3-year-old girls that probably should be on the radar screen this year, kicks off her season at Oaklawn. Brad Cox trainee Taraz goes out for Judd Mott and Brad Cox off of 2 wins last year. Maiden breaker at Churchill in the middle of November. Then a little stakes race December 21st down at the fairgrounds. Both won those by daylight, improved the buyer number in both of those starts, and now comes back, as I say, for the 3-year-old filly debut down at Oaklawn. Race number 6 this afternoon, the Martha Washington. Taraz in against 4 others, the field of 5 scheduled. We'll see if that one can continue the win streak. Even money on the morning line, and it does look like she has an edge on this field. But again, it's always a little bit of a question mark. Going a mile this afternoon, the first 2 starts 6.5 and 6 furlongs, so it's going to be a first-time stretch out to 2 turns. That's always a little question mark. But if you believe the numbers, probably has this field up against it a little bit. Taraz making the 3-year-old debut, 3-year-old filly debut today, 6th race at Oaklawn, the Martha Washington. Going back to yesterday, I'll talk about that race at Aqueduct yesterday, the Sir Winston race in a minute. But for folks who don't turn in during the week, we mentioned it during the week, and at the top of the show, I started thinking for folks who don't tune in during the week, maybe working or whatever, maybe don't realize Larry Coleman's no longer the NYRA announcer, Belmont, Saratoga. He's been there for 5 years now. I didn't realize it was that long. I mean, it seems like just a couple. I was playing basketball the other night with somebody who mentioned Larry Coleman in the news, and he said, yeah, he's been there for a couple of years. And I thought, man, that sounds about right. But Tom Durkin, it was 5 years ago. Larry Coleman had a 5-year contract. It was up, and from the news reports, Coleman and NYRA couldn't reach an agreement on a new contract. So John Embrial, your wintertime announcer, will continue full-time at NYRA. So we'll be listening to Johnny I, going into Belmont and Saratoga and whatnot. So a little bit of a change-up in the announcer's booth in New York going forward. That news, as I say, came out Wednesday afternoon. And if you want more information, you can check out Grenig. Dave Grenig had an article in the Racing Forum. Equidaily, I think I linked to Tim Wilkins' article in the Times Union, but the news was obviously well reported if you wanted some more info. And as I say, if you didn't catch up to that middle of the week. If you didn't see yesterday's 7th race at Aqueduct, it was the 2020 debut of Sir Winston, last year's Belmont Stakes winner. Laid off from the Belmont Stakes until December turf race down at Fairgrounds, which just seemed like an odd choice and didn't really lift a hoof at all in that race. So I didn't know what to do with Sir Winston yesterday. And the betting public was pretty much in the same boat as they made that one the 3rd choice at 4-1. Well, Sir Winston in the stretch just had too much class for this bunch. And there was a little bit, Dylan Davis was on board and had to really kind of search for some room and jostled a little bit with the eventual 4th place finisher. The stewards looked, and I said yesterday, because we showed the race, we played it live while I was doing OTB Live, and I said, the stewards made the right decision. Had the 4th place finisher wound up closer, I think the stewards would have had a tougher decision. But the 4th place finisher, you can't really argue there was any momentum at the time of the contact. And Sir Winston just went and passed the 2 horses that were ahead of those 2, while the horse that he kind of made contact with really just spun his wheels a little bit. Didn't have any momentum, didn't get any momentum, and wound up finishing 4th 3 or 4 lengths behind the third-place finisher. So it was hard to argue that changed the order or cost the fourth-place finisher a position. There was some contact. It was almost also, when you looked at the head-on, maybe a little 50-50, and that the eventual fourth-place finisher came in a little bit on Sir Winston. But Sir Winston was in a little bit of a jackpot. Dylan Davis had to find some room, did it, and then when Sir Winston saw the daylight opened up, the chart margin was eventually 2 1/4. It was a nice race. The follow-up article by Dave Grenig in the Racing Form, he had talked to trainer Mark Casse by phone. He was down in Ocala, and he was very happy with the result. They had aimed for the stake last week, the Jazzle, but a while ago, Sir Winston had lost a shoe during a workout and wound up with a little bit of an ouchy foot, so they were using some glue-on shoes in the meantime. And given the track condition in the Jazzle the other day, they decided not to go there. Picked this allowance race yesterday. The game plan now, according to Cassie, either shoot for the Bernardini Stakes at Aqueduct on February 29th or train up to the Dubai World Cup. And that's the way, that's the game plan, the Dubai World Cup. So it's just, do we put another race into the horse or just train? Horse is going to stay in New York with Mark Casse's assistant, Jamie Begg. Cassie quoted in the Grenig article, "I'm not taking him anywhere. Jamie's done too good a job with him," because he's been in New York for a while now. And again, he looked really good yesterday in his 4-year-old debut. So with what he did yesterday, with what Mucho Gusto did in the Pegasus last week, let's keep our fingers crossed. The handicap division was just a little bit iffy last year, and that was evidenced by that eclipse vote for older dirt male, where folks were kind of debating between Vino Rosso or Matoli, and with Matoli already having the eclipse for the sprinter, folks went for Vino Rosso. I did on my ballot, but it was a debate, and you were kind of searching around there. Nobody on the handicap division kind of jumped off the page at you. There wasn't even 3 or 4 where you thought. Matoli certainly had a solid year, but Matoli was more sprinter than handicap division, which you think of as being more of those classic distances. But again, with some of those 3-year-olds from last year looking good early in the year so far this year, the handicap division could be a little bit interesting in 2020. Just quickly before we wrap up, pulled up this morning the EQUIBASE jockey stats from a couple of the tracks that I know we all pay attention to during the winter, one of those being Aqueduct. And at this point, Jose Lezcano running away with the jockey title down at Aqueduct. At this point in the meet, Jose Lezcano 42 wins, Manny Franco 29. So pretty good gap between first and second. Dylan Davis at 27, Junior Alvarado and Eric Cancel at 26. Over at Gulfstream Park, also a nice gap between 1 and 2. Irad Ortiz, 70 winners so far at the Gulfstream meet. Luis Saez, 55. So 70 versus 55, back at 42. A nice gap between second and third. Paco Lopez. Jaramillo, I like him. He's sitting in fourth with 38. Gaffleon, 36, sitting in fifth. Jose Ortiz and Rendon both sit at 22. Just looking down. Edgar Prado for example, I was going to say with limited mounts. For example, Irad Ortiz has had 290 mounts at the meet. Luis has 306. Edgar Prado has had only 72, but 14 winners. So Edgar Prado, who I know is popular with a lot of folks from his time up here in New York, having a pretty good meet down there in 2020. All right, so there's an update on some of the jockey standings here as we have turned the page from January to February, and we're into the winter meets, halfway points or so, I would suppose, at these meets, and I gave you a little update there. All right, going to wrap things up for this edition of Racing Across America. I want to thank ELLIS STARR for joining us a little bit earlier, Jack Knowlton. Also want to remind you, Super Bowl Sunday here at the Clubhouse Racebook, double promotion day. Can't beat that. A $100 knockout challenge and a match bet promotion. Those both happen here at the Clubhouse Racebook tomorrow, Sunday, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Sunday features a 1% Aqueduct bonus. That all happens with your Capital OTB bet account. There are some restrictions. Check out the website for more information. Also coming up on various days during the month of February, a 2% GULFSTREAM bonus. Check out the website for more information there. As you can see, Wednesdays and Thursdays in February. And a reminder, once again, Vegas, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for us here on Capital OTB. We will be live from Bally's in Vegas for the National Handicapping Championship. Live cut-ins throughout the afternoon and into the evening. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday next week. Looking forward to it. We'll be talking to some of the biggest players in the country and much, much more. That all happens right here next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. OTB TV. Want to thank our friends at Gulfstream for their sponsorship. Gulfstream Park champions start here, and that certainly will be a theme of the day with the Holy Bull highlighting the action on this Saturday afternoon. Again, according to the information we have right now, races 8 and 10 at Gulfstream still on the turf. The other turf races off. But obviously keep your eyes on that throughout the afternoon and whatnot as well to verify. Seth Merrow in here on a Saturday morning. Thanks for joining us as always. Be back in on a Saturday afternoon for OTB Live. Probably check in about an hour and a half or so and kick things off. Aqueduct, Gulfstream, Tampa in the mix, some Fairgrounds, some Oaklawn. We'll have a little bit of this and that. Santa Anita a little bit later on. They have a couple of nice stakes as well that we hit on a little bit earlier with ELLIS STARR. So looking forward to all of it on Saturday afternoon. But wrapping it up for this Sunday morning. Thanks for joining us on Racing Across America on this Saturday. Back in tomorrow at 10 o'clock, Racing Across America for a Sunday morning. But we'll be back in about an hour and a half for OTB Live on a Saturday afternoon. We'll see you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.